So I've decided that I'm going to do a little testimony. I have just in the last 2 years lost both my mom and my dad. They were a year and a half apart. So if I start crying, that's what testimonials do, right? I mean, and the thing is, Mom died in January of 2014, and my dad just passed away in October. What date is this? October, September 18th. September 18th. So it was just a year and a half apart, and I really believe that I did not have a chance to grieve my mom because I really went into being worried about and concerned about my dad, and they both had a difficult time of it, but his personality was, I'm going to do it my way, and darn, he did. He did, and that took a lot of toll on other people that were around him, but he did do it his way. And I guess because I was born in a long time ago. I was okay. How old? I'm 72.
Really?
And my dad died at 93 and a half. So that means his dad died at 87, so I'm going to live to be 100. You got it. I mean, that's all there is. And I was looking back and reflecting, as we all do in different times, about my childhood, and I'm just, I was raised in an average family, we watched the hit parade, and though some of you don't even know what that is, but yeah, I recall, they were hardworking people, and they did the best they could. They really did. They brought us up the best they could. But growing up, sometimes you don't appreciate that. I can remember always saying from the time I was about 12, 6 more years I can get out of here. I did that every year until I got out. But the thing about that is, even though I got out, I always went and saw my folks. I always respected them and loved them. But I wasn't always happy with their decisions as I was growing up. But reflecting back, I can really honor them in knowing that they did the best they could. And I am so grateful for that. Even the times that I didn't agree with them, it was mostly for my best interest. And I recall just going out to dinner on Saturday nights. Even, they're hardworking people, and we went to nice restaurants Saturday nights, and we would have a great meal, and they always, it was the 4 of us, my brother, myself, and my folks. And sitting and watching the hit parade, and I saw Elvis Presley and all that stuff, and having hot fudge sundaes on, the hit parade, after the hit parade. We always have hot fudge sundaes. And we'd always, when we traveled, like the time we went to Nebraska, because that's where I was from, I don't remember it. I mean, I don't remember being there, but the time we went back to Nebraska, we were always about food, My mom was a great cook. She was a wonderful cook, so she'd fix up all this fried chicken and all this macaroni salad and everything to eat on the way. Well, we would have it consumed by the time we got, what is that town, Kingston or something? I don't know. It was like maybe 100 miles away. We already ate all the food, And, I just can appreciate all those wonderful times. But, you go through the rebellious stages, and I did that too. And I was a little challenging as a child, and especially a teenager, because I knew what it was all about and they didn't. That was just obvious. But they always worked. My mom went back to work when I was about 12, and she worked 40 hours a week, and she worked hard. And she would come home every night, and she would fix a full meal, and she would stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning and do pies and cookies and stuff. When I had my friends over as a teenager, she would always have them for dinner. She would always just open her heart and her home to them, because she'd rather have me there with them. And, I am so grateful for those experiences. And even as challenging as my dad was, and he was very challenging because he was very stubborn, And he knew it was his way or the highway. And that was just the way it was. And I just resented him so much. And even as an adult, he would talk to my brother and I like we were this high. And he never stopped doing that. But I recognize now that was just the way he talked to us. It was the way he was. I didn't like it, but I can see through it now. I can see that he was just afraid to show a lot of love. Because when I reflect on what his life was growing up, he didn't have real good childhood. He was one of 9. He was the second to the youngest. He started riding the road when he was about 14, 13, something like that. His parents pretty much let them go and raise themselves. His older sister was left with all of the other kids for like a month and a half or 2 while his parents went off somewhere and did some work somewhere. I mean, and he always craved that, wanting to be accepted in that love. So the way he chose to show love was being a little bit harsh so nobody could get in, but he knew he loved you. Does that make any sense? And I miss him. And excuse me. I was really surprised when I did a reading at his memorial and I started crying because he was the last one I thought I would start to cry over. And because I loved my mom a lot. I mean, I loved them both, but she was the one that was more supportive of me emotionally. And she was always the one that said, I love you, you're my daughter. Anything you do, I will always be by your side. Well, he would just say, oh, no, whatever, you just don't know what you're talking about. That was his way, but I do miss him because I know now, I can see through that barrier. Towards the end of his life, he always wanted to pass it home, and he did. We tried, I can't even tell you how hard we tried to get him into a place where he could be and taken care of. He would have no part of it. And we took him when the fires were out there in Jackson area just not too long ago, a few months ago. His home was in danger, so we took him to the doctor, to the emergency room, thinking, the doctor came and everything. We tried to get him in. He would not sign the paper. There is no way you're getting me to stay here. None. But I could see through that, he was a little concerned, and we couldn't take him because he could hardly walk. He really needed to have a wheelchair, and he wouldn't get one. So he couldn't walk, and he couldn't take care of himself, and he went and had all of his teeth pulled because he wanted new teeth, and then he bounced the checks. So the guy wouldn't give him new teeth. So it was like, oh my God, help me. I can't eat but Jell-O and ice cream and everything else. It was just awful. It was awful the last few weeks of his life. And I just felt so bad for him. And I know that he wanted to be with my mom. He would talk about my mom all the time, but he was afraid to die. And he just held on to being with all of his might. So he ended up passing at his home by himself. When I went and saw him, I first went in the door, I was just so pleased that he was so peaceful. And he had a smile on his face. So I know that he saw my mom. The person that was living downstairs that kind of checked in on him once in a while got a call from him and said, I want you to come up here because I see smoke. And that was after the fires. We're talking a couple of weeks after the fires. So this fellow came up and he said, no, he said, Dick, there's no smoke. There's nothing here. Everything's fine. He said, you just rest and I'll be back in the morning. This is about 4:30 in the morning. And I'll be back and check on you later. Well, I'm convinced that wasn't smoke. That was the veil on the other side coming towards him. I really believe that because he passed shortly after that. And the guy came upstairs about 8:30, about 9 o'clock, I think, and he was gone. And then he called me. But going over there and looking at him, I thought, oh, thank God, he is just so peaceful. He looks so good. And I am just so grateful for having both of them as my parents, because I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for them. Regardless if I agreed with their decisions and their upbringing or certain times or whatever, I wouldn't have been that. And I'm so grateful to be a practitioner, because what becoming a practitioner does is you look at your life, you look at your past, you write about who you are and what you are and how you feel and what you've been through, and the thoughts of things that have been happening and in your life, and you practice forgiveness. That is so important. Forgiveness and gratitude for your life. You wake up in the morning and you're grateful that the sun is shining. You're grateful and thankful for every person in your life, for every action. And I'm just so filled with gratitude and thanksgiving for my folks. Thank you. And now here's our newest practitioner, Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Sandy. I can't stand up in front of a podium because I'm just I have to move around. So, gratitude, well, as Sandy was saying, hindsight. And at my installation, I said, hindsight is a bucket of wisdom. Well, as I look at my life, I know that gratitude played a huge, huge role to helping me to be where I am today. Gratitude is tough. It's real tough to do because you can be in a horrible situation. And I've had some pretty bad ones with a very abusive husband physically against me and my children. How can you be grateful? How? But I do have my children. I did have my children. I did have a roof over my head. I had food. I had clothing. And having that consciousness of knowing what you do have that you can be grateful for helps you to be able to respond to the troubles, to the hard times, the tough times. And of course, I didn't know it then. I didn't know science of mind, period. I just was in survival mode. But as I reflect back, I realized that gratitude played a huge role in supporting me supporting me, so that I could keep on going. When my very special husband of 30 years was in hospice, we were living up in Humboldt County in the Redwoods, and I was feeling very lonely because all of my family was down here in the Sacramento area or in San Jose, and dear, dear friends. And I had acquaintances up there in Humboldt, but not the close, loving family and friends that I already had in other areas. And so when hospice would come and stay with Ray, and that was my time where I had to dash around, go and do errands and take care of business. And I was just feeling so busy, so frantic, so everything, that I couldn't allow myself to sit down and meditate. I couldn't allow myself to take the time to think about and prepare a whole mind treatment. But I could do gratitude. And just driving down the road and seeing the beautiful redwood trees. I'm grateful I'm here in these redwood trees. Thank you. And having and allowing that gratitude to be within you is God showing up in your life. is providing you with that loving support. Because the more gratitude you have, the more it shows up. And this is a proven fact in my life, and I've seen it in others. And I've studied it. I'm a fresh new student. I got the material still in my head here. And as Sandy was talking about in practitioner training during that first year, all it is learning about yourself. Because that's preparing you to be able to provide for others. And the biggest theme in that was two things, was forgiveness. Because how can you be grateful for something that you're really mad at? That's pretty tough. That's asking for a lot. And so forgiveness is so important in the process. And this was such foreign information to me way back when I first started Science of Mind, was forgive this man that beat me up and my children and damaged us? How can I do that? I can't do that. But I did. Took 70 times 7 times 700 times whatever it is. But I finally could. And then once I did that, then I had gratitude for the fact that I learned in that experience how strong I was, how worthy I was of surviving this and being able to continue on day by day by day by day, taking care of my children, finally as a single mom. And so it's all tied in together, that forgiveness, and then comes the gratitude. And the more gratitude you have, the more you're able to forgive. Leave all that stuff behind you, clean it up, let it go. And be grateful for what your life experiences have taught you, because you wouldn't be who you are today without that. And I am truly, truly grateful for that. My life is full, and I'm surrounded by wonderful friends. I can see my family. What more could I ask for? I have a roof over my head and I got food. So I live gratitude. I live gratitude. Thank you. And here's our Betty.
Thank you. I like to hide behind the podium myself. So, this thing is going to fall off one of these days. What I want to talk about is this book, 365 Thank Yous, which is a good time of year for that. And it was last November, Jayanti talked about it when we had our Wednesday night service, which is this Wednesday. So if you can make it this Wednesday at 7, she is wonderful from the Ananda group. And, okay, stay. So this book, what this John Kralik, who is a lawyer, 52 years old at the time when he wrote that, he was having a really bad year. Everything was not going right. He was losing the lease where he was working. He had a girlfriend sometimes and didn't other times, and he wasn't getting along with his sons. He was divorced from his other wife. He had one client that he did win a court case for, which he should have gotten. You know, he won like $1 million. The client still owed him $170,000. No, $400,000 total. $170,000 from that guy, and he wasn't getting the money. So he figured out that he was actually $12,000 behind. Instead of making money that year, he lost $12,000. He had another lady that was suing him. Well, actually, he took a case for this lady who wanted to sue her brother for hiding money from him, and they were suing him and another gentleman who was hiding the money, and it turned out that they dropped the case because the sister was having an affair with the guy who they were trying to sue. It turned out so, and then the guy who was trying to sue who she was trying to sue ended up suing the lawyer for taking that case in the first place. So it was not a good year, and he went to lunch with a friend of his, and his friend was from law school. His friend said later told him that's the worst I'd ever seen you. He was all pasty looking. He was 50 pounds overweight. He was just not in a good mood. And how he got the idea to write thank you notes is he was going to go on a hike. It was New Year's Day, going to go on a hike with his girlfriend, who was kind of his girlfriend, not his girlfriend. And so he asked her, are we going to still go on the hike? And she said, no, I'm busy that day. So he decided to go on the hike by himself. It was in Echo Mountains in Pasadena. And he went by himself, and he was having this inner dialogue with himself that kept on saying, loser, loser, to himself. And it's like this very loud voice was his only company that he had. And that wasn't exactly what he wanted to hear. And he was thinking, maybe I'll just end up here in this ravine, fall down and spend the night and die or something. But then he started thinking about when he was a boy, his grandfather, when he was 5, his grandfather would give all the grandkids a silver dollar. And he said, if you write me a thank you note, I will send you another silver dollar. So he decided to try that out. And sure enough, his grandfather did send him another silver dollar. And the grandfather was not trying to teach him, you're doing this for money. It was the gratitude to write thank you notes, but it was lost on this boy. And he actually said that maybe he can write a thank you note for every silver dollar and keep on getting silver dollars. But he just got the 2 silver dollars and did write his grandfather a thank you note. But what he started to do when he was in that ravine is he heard this other voice that said, until you learn to be grateful for the things you have, you will not receive the things you want. So because he kept on looking at we probably do this, we look at the things that are going bad in our life rather than all the things that are going good in our life. And he wasn't really thankful for anything. So he started to think about being thankful and grateful. He said he didn't even know how to spell grateful. He was spelling it G-R-E-A-T, full of greatness. He didn't even get what grateful was. So, but the voice was very loud, that voice that said, until you learn to be grateful for the things you have, you will not receive the things you want. So he decided, thinking back about his grandfather and the thank you notes, he decided that what he was going to do was make a New Year's resolution, since it was New Year's Day, and he's being 52, he's made lots of New Year's resolutions that didn't come true, but he decided he was going to write a thank you note every day to somebody for something. And it brought him some joy because he was so down in the deep depression about I'm a loser. But then when he had this goal, I can write a thank you note for every day to somebody for something, it kind of lifted his spirits. So then he started the next day, and the next day it's like almost the end of the day, and he's thinking, what do I have to be thankful for? He could not think of anything to be thankful for. But then he received a thank you note from a person who he had given a Christmas present to, and he goes, oh, okay, I can do a thank you note for Christmas gifts that I've received. So he decided to write his son, who he was not in good communication with, his son a thank you note for the gift his son had given him for Christmas. And just writing that thank you note to his son, it just kind of opened him up to how he hadn't been there for his son, how he could do things better, how just looking at that, the gratitude for his son, for the gift. The son got him a coffee maker, which was this is the first time as a grown-up son that his son actually got something that was useful, and he wrote how wonderful the coffee maker was, and he was so happy to have it, and maybe he'd bring it to work and put it there and have people enjoy the coffee, or maybe he'd leave it at home and just enjoy the coffee himself. But it started making him think about his relationship with his son, and then he realized he didn't even have his son's address, hadn't been to his son's house ever, and called his son and said, I need your address so I can send you a thank you note. So the son gave him his address, and the son also said, I want to have lunch with you, which was another good thing for him because he hadn't been on good relationships with him. So they did have lunch, and when they got there, the son had this big envelope full of $100 bills, which was to pay back a loan that the son had borrowed from him before. So he's like, yeah, instant karma. I gave a thank you note, and I'm starting to receive things. And he really did need the money. He did write his son a thank you note for that too, and said, that was so nice to see that you are a man of the world. Now you're paying off your debts. And I really needed the money at this time because he had to pay $25,000 for a new lease because he had to move out of the place where he was. And he just was so grateful for the the money being paid back, and the fact that it stood for his son growing up and being of age and all that. So he had all this stationery that he had bought thinking he was going to write thank you notes, and now that his address was changing, he was thinking, I should use up that stationery real quick. And he decided to write different thank you notes to all kinds of different people, and it just really brought out the things to be grateful for him. He wrote a letter to his hairstylist who she was thinking of changing jobs, maybe going to be doing something else, and he wrote a letter to her, thank you for the wonderful haircut you gave me, and it makes me feel better to, look better, and I know you're thinking of changing jobs, but you do such a wonderful job at what you are doing, so think about maybe staying, but know that you are doing a service to people, making us all look beautiful. And then he wrote a letter to his daughter's teacher. Yes, Sarah, just like you do. Makes you feel good. I mean, the people that get to go to Sarah and get a haircut, and just she gets to see how they look and things. It's very nice. And then he wrote a letter to his daughter. He had a daughter also. He wrote a letter to the daughter's teacher, because they had a special meeting with her, and he wrote to her, thank you, I can see how much care you give to my daughter and how she is important to you, and I can feel that. So just all these different thank you notes to different people. A lot of them were to his girlfriend, his family, and things like that, even his ex-wife, and he just opened up that new place, which is kind of what Mary was talking about. Instead of looking at all the things that you aren't grateful for, and a gratitude journal is a wonderful thing to do because it makes you realize, what am I doing in this life that has, like Sarah, she can be grateful that she gets to make people look better. I know a lot of you have different things that you organize people's houses and things like that, and being a teacher for JJ, it made you proud of the things that you were able to give. And you didn't always get the thank you notes. A lot of times we don't get the thank you notes, but you can be grateful for the job that you do yourself, and just all the other people in your life that you can be grateful to. Also, the people that come and set up, and the music and the books and all the things that people do. And if you take the time, nowadays we don't do too many snail mail type of things, but just a handwritten note it really touches people to know that they're important enough to you to take the time to write to them. So he did make it the whole 365 days to do the notes. And I know it's a big undertaking, but for him, it changed his life from being this 50-pound overweight, divorced, sometimes girlfriend, not getting along with his kids, lawyer not making much money, to being a year later, to being this whole different grateful person for all the things there are in life to be grateful for. So it really was life-changing for him, and it's a wonderful idea. But the gratitude journal is something that I know Oprah always talks about, and I hope you're listening to Oprah and Deepak Chopra's 21-day meditation that's going on about belief changing, because you may have a belief of who you are, and if you can change that belief to who you really are, how God sees you, because we might have this little minuscule idea of who we are, but it's so much more when we open up to it. But Oprah does talk about gratitude journals and writing down at least 3 things that you're grateful for every day, usually at the end of the day, and then you can go to sleep instead of with the news on your mind, the things that you are grateful for. And sometimes it might just be more, it might be just 3, sometimes it might be a whole lot more. But putting yourself into that space of what am I grateful for, not in that space of this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, because that can take you right down that hole. So it's just the change in the energy, and even worrying about people. When you worry about people, you bring your energy down, their energy down too. So just being grateful for who they are, flaws and everything. Even if we make mistakes up here, we're okay with it. If you can laugh at yourself, is great. But so gratitude this is the perfect time of year. It's too bad we just have 1 month for the year of gratitude, because it's something that we can do all year long. But I guess I'm going to wrap it up. Any questions? No. Does anybody have a gratitude story they want to say? Sarah, have you gotten some wonderful notes from people? Or no. Okay, but people probably tell you. Oh. There was something that touched you.
Oh, definitely touched me. But, yeah, when Sandy was talking about her father, my father, probably the last 30 years of his life, was an alcoholic. I never admitted he was an alcoholic. And when I first came to this philosophy, I heard what you said, that he did, no, how did you say, he did the best he could? No. And I said, BS, he did not, I just really revolted against that. But then I heard it another way. He did the best he knew how. And that changed my thinking about my dad.
Yes, I do love that everybody's always doing the best that they know how. If they do different, they do different. But if they don't, so that's what we get from them. Anybody else gratitude? Anne, want to say how grateful you are for being here and healthy and...
Thank you. First of all, I'm grateful for this church. I am grateful for each and every one of you and for the philosophy that we have here. It's a lifesaver. It is. And you're my family. You're my on-site family. The next thing of gratitude that I have, again, it includes this church. Several years ago, I suddenly was very ill and didn't know that I was ill until my boyfriend found me on the floor and rushed me to the hospital. I had a fever of 106, and had he not come, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Had Reverend Robin not been there, and Reverend Sandra, I've been thinking of her a lot today, their prayers vibrated me into health. It truly did, and I'm grateful for both of them. So thank you.
I was going to say that too. I am so grateful for Mountainside, and it's like this ripple effect or a domino effect, whatever it is, when you meet certain people, let's say guest speakers and musicians and so forth, or just, people who are here every day, and they introduce you to something new that really changes your life. My life is I'm talking about right now, and so there are so many things I could go in so many directions on that I could say happened and changed my life. So just being here week after week and experiencing all the different kinds of experiences that I've had here and people that I've met. Reverend Sandra changed my life. Having Melissa, Felipe, and Z here that one time, it just totally changed my life in the last year. And, there's so much to be grateful for. I feel so good, and I just want to share that with people, and just there's so much. Yeah, thank you. And for Betty, all the classes and everything. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Susan. I'm grateful for two things. For my husband, he always teaches me things that I need to learn. And secondly, we just came home Thursday from 7-week humongous trip. And the highlight of the trip for me being with and seeing my brother, who's 63 now, who started drinking heavily when he was in his early 20s, and 2 years ago finally stopped after 40 years of severe alcoholism and several near-death experiences. So when Sarah mentioned her dad, I just, he's back with all of his humor, his intellect, and it's just a great gift.
Hi, I'm Elisa. This is my daughter, Alwyn. I think I'm just really full of gratitude right now for my mother, who's a big teacher for me. And sometimes we butt heads, but there was just an experience yesterday where I think I was falling into a bit of a pity party for myself and just really wanting somebody to join in that little party with me. And she did not. And she told me what I needed to hear, which is the sign of a true friend and teacher sometimes. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rick, a relative newcomer to your group, and thank you so much for allowing me to join you. I'm very grateful for my health, my wonderful family, my life, but most of all for Science of Mind. I found Science of Mind. I was invited by a relative about 5 years ago, and was interested, but not interested enough to dive in until about 3 years ago, and making the leap of faith. Find my life has changed. And it's changed to the degree where I'm studying to be a practitioner myself. Year one, I'm in the middle of that. So I'm, yes, learning about myself too. But I reached out to my estranged sister who lives on the East Coast and decided I would share with her my spiritual journey. And she wrote back saying, I am too. So now we have lots to talk about. So thank you all.
Anybody else? Okay. Good job. Yes.